thank you very much for finding time to join us today to launch the series. It will be 6 conferences, 6 seminars with panels looking at different aspects of the plan for rebuilding Florence, to bring in these new ideas from all around the world to help us on the journey. And it was all inspired very much by the big speech that you gave at the Palazzo Vecchio, I think even in May, when you spoke about the need that the Florence of the future must be more intelligent, more inclusive and greener. So to start the conversation, can you tell us more about your vision for the city as we rebuild after the COVID crisis?
So first of all, thank you, Simon, for the invitation. I'm proud to participate to this conversation. I'm sorry if I can't stay physically with you today, but I would like to thank you also for this important contribution that you are giving to Florence with this cycle of seminaries, of conferences. You know, the pandemic which disrupted our lives in these months and has not yet been defeated is a challenge both for public health and for its profound social impact. I do think that we should leave this time as an opportunity to rethink and deliver a new development model for the city, able to keep together the traditional cultural, artistic, touristic, industrial and manufacturing vocation of our city with new or renewed functions connected to a smart city profile. Artisan shops, biotechnology, modern entrepreneurship abilities, infrastructures to connect and support enterprises, spaces for professional development and for graduate and postgraduate research, high-tech and high-value tourism, so that they can all live together and foster each other.
That's perfect. So if we can go into some of the detail behind that vision, Dario, starting off with the environmental agenda, what must we do to make Florence a greener and more sustainable city?
Good question. I think there are many examples of how the new daily life for which we are now preparing can become a new beginning. Take, for example, the traffic issue. Due to the forced lockdown, there were, and there are still, fewer cars on the streets, less noise, less pollution. Do we really want to go back to the past? This is the question. Do we really want to focus mainly on private mobility? Let's take a look at what other cities are doing now. Large areas in London, for example, are car-free zones after the easing of lockdown. The streets will be reserved to pedestrians, bikers and buses, to readapt London street to the people, as my colleague Mayor Sadiq Khan says. This is going to be the biggest car-free area of a capital city in the world. But other cities, Simon, are not less ambitious. Milan, for example, is going to transform 35 kilometers of streets with extension of bike lanes and pedestrian areas. Many other cities want to maintain the temporary bike routes created during the lockdown and refurbish the public areas for a greener, cleaner, and healthier future. In Florence, we have just launched the so-called Operazione Bartali. Bartali is the famous bike champion, no? As you know.
Sure.
Within this year, 12 kilometers of new cycling routes will be completed and added to the 95 kilometers of already existing lanes, paths. At the same time, we are building provisional routes foreseen by the Ministry of Transportations, thanks to a derogation to the Road Traffic Code, an important law adopted 1 month ago. And we are talking about 10 kilometers on streets exclusively reserved until today to motor vehicles. We are facing now the biggest opportunity of environmental transformation of our urban space, with an unprecedented acceleration to the energetic transition, which is one of the European goals, as you know.
Yes.
Production of sustainable, productive, and working models, creation of new professions in the green economy field. Florence can definitely become one of the best European examples of the connection existing between biodiversity and development. And our personal support as citizens is really fundamental for that.
Fantastic. And I hear that Florence is doing very well as one of the leaders for the green initiatives in Italy and in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Moving on to another important area. There is a lot of talk about building a knowledge economy in Florence. How realistic is that? And what steps should we take to accelerate the growth of a knowledge economy here?
Yeah, this is another important item. I think that the revitalization of our city goes necessarily through knowledge and higher education. In July, we have welcomed to Palazzo Vecchio, probably you remember, 19 foreign delegations with the ambassadors and the diplomatic representatives of some of the most important countries in the world.
Yes.
They have assured us about the willingness of their countries to help Florence, starting from these issues. We have asked ambassadors to help us open new international universities in Florence, in addition to those already existing, and new research centers to work together for developing higher education. So this is only one example about our engagement for this important goal that we still have today.
Very good. And to go on about the knowledge economy, yeah. Are there other initiatives in the city to create an ecosystem around the higher education world to build more startup culture, more innovation, eventually some kind of Silicon Arno? I don't know.
So I think the economic and cultural innovation is a real topic for Florence in general, for our country. In the next month, we will have to retighten the ties which were cut with universities due to the explosion of the COVID pandemic, as you know, obviously. The COVID pandemic, which has left at home so many students, both Italian and from abroad. Classes are slowly restarting, but we are still very far away from the buzzing city, full of life and students exchange we used to know. I'm planning to go on international missions abroad in the coming months to promote a new Florentine Renaissance model in the United States, in China, and of course in Europe. It is my firm intention to focus on higher education, I will prepare an attraction plan for the foreign universities as it happened in the past for American universities. I believe that the time has come for a new course for research centers, cultural institutions, foreign universities to be opened up in town as previously said. And probably we also can use the European funds coming from Next Generation Plan. I want to call this fund not Recovery Fund. I prefer Next Generation Fund, so the correct title. Also because this fund, from title, is focused on the next generation, and innovation and higher education are fundamental points of the next generation policy, next generation strategy. So I would like to give also a big support to my country and to European Union with these activities, starting from the international mission abroad that I hope to start as soon as possible.
Good. Sounds like an important trip, and I hope it goes very well.
We can organize some issues together, no?
Yes, why not? We can again we can use this forum as a way of talking to the world. This is the offer to Firenze from the British Institute of Florence, so that we can help you on the international journey. Turning to manufacturing sector, because I know that in the economic terms, the manufacturing sector is bigger than tourism, so it's more important for the city's economy. There's a lot of big industrial players in Florence, but also the traditional botteghe, who help to define the identity of made in Florence. How can tradition and innovation work together to make a better and more successful manufacturing ecosystem for Florence?
This is another important question. I think not simple. In the metropolitan, first of all, I would like to underline that in the metropolitan area of Florence, we have 93,000 enterprises, and we produce 2.5% of Italy's GDP. People around the world consider Florence only as a culture capital, no? Yeah. But we have many different enterprises, and many of our enterprises are owned by investment funds and by international corporate groups. And we have received reassurance by the diplomatic delegations attending the meeting at Palazzo Vecchio in July that the country of origin of these businesses will continue to invest in Florence. And this is an important and positive point that I would like to underline. This is encouraging, considering the fact that the tourism is not the only resource of our local economy. Of course, it's the main resource in the city center, but if you consider the metropolitan city, it's not the only resource of our economy, which is also based on export, for example, fashion, chemical pharmaceutical production. We have the first Italian pharmaceutical industry, in Menarino, for example, or research laboratories and services. But there is obviously also concern for the uncertainty of the coming months. And Florence and its metropolitan area have lost more than 1 billion euros in the touristic sector, which means from an economic point of view, more than 7 billion euros, considering the fashion district, the handcraft sector, and the large manufacturing industries. Now, the current global recession has weakened the most dynamic cities as Milano, which in 2019 experienced an economic boom in various fields, like creativity, vitality, and innovation, and now are suffering much more than other cities from the crisis. Yet, despite this, I firmly believe that Florence will return to play a leading role. From one side, by firmly supporting the big manufacturing companies in the metropolitan area, and on the other side, not forgetting the Florentine finest artisan tradition.
Yeah.
Not just by a coincidence that the fashion house Dolce & Gabbana has chosen Florence at the beginning of September to present their project of a fashion renaissance, giving value to the know-how of our craftsmen who design fabrics, jewels, art prints, glasses, bringing these finest products to the world's attention.
That's right. And I think if you put the growing power of the higher education, the international higher education and research, together with the strong industrial base and the innovation, you have a winning combination to drive a new economy with all kinds of new startup businesses as well. I believe is part of your vision.
The challenge is to keep all these different characteristics of the city, no? These different vocations. Yeah. We must keep together in a unique model, complex but strong model.
That's right. And so that leads us through the traditions of the bottega and the craftsman into the centro storico and the big question around tourism. Because I think many people agree, and I know that you've said one or two things in recent years about the problem of over-tourism becoming a real issue for the centro storico of Florence. So what can we do? What can we do? Practical action to build better quality, higher value, low volume tourism in Florence to make it a better city, both for visitors and for residents.
Yes, this is one of the items that we introduced we insert in our strategic plan after COVID emergency, named Rinasce Firenze.
Yes.
And obviously for us, Rinascimento is the heart of the strategy, of course. And the current phase has enabled us to be fully aware of the weakness of our model of development of tourism in these recent years. For this reason, we need to find new models for touristic flow management, fostering a slower and more sustainable, conscious, I'd like to say conscious, responsible tourism, based on a coexistent pact between citizens and tourists. Our common goal shall be to oppose to the unproductive and passive income. We have launched a new housing plan 3 weeks ago with the aim to create a pact between tenants and owners in order to encourage the landlords to rent their apartments to Florentines instead of tourists. After 70 years after Giorgio Lapira's social housing plan, the famous housing plan, our goal is still to tackle an issue which causes economic difficulties to around 10,000 Florentines. And the municipality of Florence will play a role between owners and tenants, giving housing demand and offer the opportunity to meet. And we are very committed in reassuring the landlords who have houses to rent, increasing the residency starting from the historic center, sustaining the so-called middle class through economic measures, avoiding the very dangerous risk of thousands of people slipping towards the poverty line in a moment of economic crisis.
Very good. And is there any particular initiatives that you have in mind to limit the day trippers, the people who come to Florence and stay here for 3 or 4 hours via Panino and go away again? Is there anything we can do to reduce that or control that some way?
Yes, as you know, we already delivered some local rules about some streets in a historical center in order to limit, to forbidden some behaviors, no? And now we are working with the Ministry of Culture to deliver a national law to govern the big problem, to manage the big problem we have in the historical center, not only Florence, about the internet platform like Airbnb.
Yeah.
And we have also been working for years to limit the so-called bite and run tourism. Yes. Of bite and run, I don't know if it's correct.
Yeah, it works. It works.
I don't know if you have an expression of bite and run tourism of those who exploit the city. No? Because the problem is the exploitation of the city for a very short time. And with pandemic, we shall contrast this trend even harder. In 2015, the municipality of Florence was the first local authority in Italy to stop a change of a property's destination of using to touristic receptive use in the historical city center as a urban plan action. In the last 5 years, this has prevented the opening of new hotels within the city center area. In many urban transformations in progress, for example, in the enhancement of the complex of Santa Maria Novella and redevelopment of the former post office building in Via Pietrapiana, both in the historic center, we have provided that part of the square meters shall be used for housing needs in order to promote local residency for young couples, for example, for new families coming in Florence or coming back to Florence. By the end of this tenure, the goal is also to ban tourist buses throughout the municipal territory of the city. I mean the daily tourist buses. And I am referring to the daily tourist buses which increase traffic and pollution and do not bring significant added value to the touristic sector. But on the end of my reflection, I have to say that we need an European strategy, yes. A European framework, yes. Juridic framework, because Florence problems are the same problems about other important touristic cities like Amsterdam, Paris, Valencia, Barcelona. In fact, we have now an important European cities network engaged on these topics. And I hope we can find an important support in the European Commission. And 3 days ago, I had a meeting with the European Commissioner in charge for these problems. And I believe that we can find together a common solutions. Together, cities, member states, and the European Union.
That makes a lot of sense. Before I moved back to Florence 2 years ago, I was living in Poland, and cities like Gdansk and Krakow and down in Czech Republic, Prague and Tallinn over in Estonia, they all have real problems in the Czech historical, which is similar. So it is a European problem. You're correct.
Exactly. And for example, the mayor of Krakow is one of the members of this network.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, cities are very different. So you can't compare Florence to Paris, but it's incredible. This problem about the over-tourism, the sustainable tourism, how to keep the real spirit of historical center is common. You can find the same problems everywhere in Europe.
And you may look to Venezia and hope that can be a lesson. Hope that can be a lesson to other cities not to make that mistake.
Yeah, but for that reason, we need to share solutions, because you don't have only one solution available for all cities. And I think that the meeting and network are fundamental to share tools and solutions for this big problem that we are living. Also after the COVID emergency.
Correct. And it's an economic challenge, a cultural challenge, but it's also an
economic and social challenge.
And also environmental.
And environmental.
Yeah, too much unintelligent traveling is not good for the planet.
Exactly.
Okay, Dario, do you have time to take a few questions from our audience? Can we do that?
Yes, why not?
Okay, so we've got some people here with me in the library, and I'm going to ask Sarah to let people who are on the Zoom come in with their images and questions. So we'll start in the room. Do we have a question in the room from anyone who'd like to ask the Syndico something? Michael. Michael, what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you to come here and speak into this microphone.
Please, a simple question.
Yeah. This is Michael Griffith, who's the Life Governor of the British Institute of Florence.
I have to speak into here, right. Dario, just one question, an example of a practical thing perhaps for renewing Florence, taking the Uffizi Gallery, which is a showpiece for Florence, which is really in need of renewal in terms of its layout, reception and everything. And I've been here for many years waiting for the exit to be finished, and it looks to be, if we may be appearing towards that, but it is in need for a visitor coming to the showpiece of the Uffizi, to get into it, to go through it and to come out of it, isn't an enormously happy and successful experience. So what are the plans for renewing Florence in upgrading its showpiece of the Uffizi?
In summary, how can we fix the Uffizi?
Yeah, so as you know, thanks for this question. As you know, Uffizi is a state museum, and I'm not in charge for the Uffizi project, but as a mayor of the city, of course, I'm really interested about the future and the strategy of this important museum, which is the first Italian museum. And I used to share with the Minister of Culture, this is Dario Franceschini, to share problems and solutions. And I think that this building site we have just behind Palazzo Vecchio, that I can see all day from my window, it's not a real positive visit card for tourists and visitors. But to be honest, you have to consider that this project about the new Uffizi Museum is very complex and expensive, and now working are going quickly, and I hope in 4 years all works about new Uffizi will be finished. This is a good goal, I think, also because in the Uffizi project, as you know, we have many restoration projects like the new Vasari corridor, but not only the corridor, also, as you told us, the new exit of Uffizi. And as you know, probably last month, I told to journalists that I completely agree about the execution of Isozaki exit project. Unfortunately, the Minister of Culture, Dario Franceschini, announced me 2 months ago that he decided to give a big economic contribution to the city and to the museum to realize this project of Isozaki architect, which is Arata Isozaki, which is one of the best architects we have in the world. So I hope this project about the new Uffizi is also a challenge about investment on contemporary art and contemporary architecture. As I already told you, Florence must keep together these missions. So the protection of cultural heritage, the protection of tradition values, and investment on new architectures, new buildings projects, refurbishment of old buildings.
Thank you very much. Now, if somebody from the Zoom would like to ask a question, just wave and I'll call you out, and then you can unmute yourself and ask the question. So Sarah, unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great.
Hello, Sarah.
Hello, buongiorno or buonasera. So just a couple of things. There is a job opening in New York City at the Italian Trade Agency. It's been open for a while. It's a job I would like to do, but it's not for me. And it's the Foreign Direct Investment Specialist. And if we had somebody from Florence who had that job, it would be really helpful for the economy here, I think, to have somebody who understands Florence, who's in New York doing that promotion.
In New York, somebody in New York doing the job.
It's a nice job. I know nobody wants to live in New York right now, but anyway, I wanted to say that. I wanted to advertise it because I think it should be a Florentine who has that job.
That's a suggestion for you, Dario.
Thank you very much. So please send me contacts because for me it's a great opportunity. But I want to remember that the Manifattura Tabacchi refurbishment project, you know, no Manifattura Tabacchi, the site between downtown and Quartiere 5. So this project started from a meeting that I had in New York with a big American investor, Mr. Perrella Fund. And after our meeting and our presentation about the opportunities on Florence, they decided immediately to invest in the city. And I mean, not only real estate investment. This is an important point because this fund, the Perrella Fund, decided to invest on Manifattura Tabacchi, not only to realize an hotel, but also to realize important infrastructures, for example, for high education projects. In fact, we are moving the Polimoda school, which is the first Italian fashion school, from the original site to this new site in Manifattura Tabacchi. So Manifattura Tabacchi is moving from abandoned site to a new modern quarter with many different missions, like high education, cultural research, and also touristic attraction. This is only an example about how important are international investors for our city. And thank you, Sarah, for this important suggestion.
I would give the invitation to the people on the Zoom. If you want to ask a question, first of all, you have to show us your face by enabling your video, and then put your hand up. And Mr. Crum has got his hand up, so it's your turn. Unmute.
Thank you, Simon, very much. And thank you, Sindaco Nardella, for your vision and for your leadership on this new Renaissance initiative for Florence. I have worked with Simon and the British Institute on study abroad initiatives in Florence. I teach at the University of Dayton, and I would say that I speak for many American college professors who have for years been involved in study abroad and bringing students to Florence. We definitely want to aid Florence in bringing students back. And I would be interested in your thoughts about how American study abroad programs can aid you in the new Renaissance of Florence. Thank you.
Thank you for this important support, really, from my heart, because, you know, Florence is not a Florentine city. Florence is really a human heritage, a cultural worldwide capital. And in fact, Florence is one of the main part of UNESCO cultural world heritage. And I firmly convinced that we need to work together. And your idea, I think, is great, and we can organize as soon as possible a meeting, also through web call, as you want, with you and with all our friends coming from American universities, in order to find our common activities, and in order to find a new solution for this Renaissance. In fact, I don't want to talk about restart. Now, many people used to say Italy, Europe must restart. But restart don't give you a real essence of our challenge. I prefer to use renaissance, rebirth. We need a rebirth. We have to change values. You have to find new strategies. We have to launch, deliver new models. And this is the big issues, big challenge we have. And we can organize together a meeting, 2 peoples, 10, 15 peoples, and we can work on our project, Rinasce Firenze, sharing ideas, sharing solutions, and using a common tools.
Thank you.
We're beginning to run out of time, so I'm going to allow just 2 more questions, one from the room, and Chandy was asking, Chandy wanted from the Zoom. But before I do, I just want to say one thing. First of all, because I know that Syndico has to leave soon, I just wanted to, with the mayor here, thank everybody out there in our community on the Zoom around the world for the generous support you gave to the city financially in the spring. I don't think that Dario knows this, but when we were running our virtual programs from April through to the end of July, we were asking for donations for the Florentine charities, for Il Cuore di Firenze and then for Firenze per Firenze, to help the city at that time. And all of you out there around the world made some important and generous donations. And I just wanted to thank you publicly in the mayor's presence for that support you have given the city in its hour of need. So thank you for that.
Thank you also from our administration. And as Mayor of Florence, I am really impressed about the big support we are receiving from everywhere. So thank you also.
So 2 last questions, and then we'll let you go, Dario. So from the floor, would you just come over here and ask him the microphone?
Mayor, thank you. I'll try to be brief. First, I'd like to say I'm very happy that this institute has this initiative, which I think is of extreme importance. Second, I have to introduce a note which might appear out of political, how happy I am to see that the Florence remains with the centre-left. I can address Dario Nardella, but this is not just a political comment. I think what is very important, one of the few points here in politics, has been the confirmation of the tradition of good administration.
The microphone is...
the tradition of good administration. Do you hear now?
Yes, now is better. Please, could you repeat the question? Slowly.
The recent regional elections, the recent regional elections, which are not directly relevant, however, I think are important because they have confirmed the long tradition of good administration, which has been true here and also in Emilia-Romagna, born in Florence, a well-known study by the American political scientist continued. This was early 70s, noted this was particular importance, and of course went back even to the era of the communes to understand why this was so. I would like to say two things really. First, I would like just one, and that is, it relates, it's a good thing for an old man to say, and that is the problem of youth. The problem of youth. We know that innovation is the key. I would say also that there are both opportunities and resources, which also in some cases relate to the preservation of the heredity and culture of Florence. To admit, somehow or other, the supply has to be made to meet the demand. There is in the first days of the epidemic, to strike more gloomy note, I was present at a demonstration in which the precari of the library brought a coffin. He said, this is the culture of Florence. We have to do something to meet the demand, particularly a number of students, researchers, all over Italy, with graduates or teachers, graduates or researchers in beni culturali. On the other hand, there would be theoretically many things that these young people could be employed to do. They could be employed to preserve the libraries and archives of Florence. This is quite clear.
So, and they're welcome to come and help us preserve our beautiful library. So, Chandi, the last question to you. Unmute.
Good afternoon, esteemed Mayor Nardella. Thank you for your time here with us. I am a homeowner here and a licensed guide, and I wanted to just ask you about the initiatives for the greening of the city. There's been a lot of talk about making it greener, and you touched on that today, but I actually have some confusion about that because I have seen trees being cut down. I live in Piazza Pier Vettori, and thank you, by the way, for fixing the piazza. It looks much better. But many of the large trees in the piazza were cut down. I'm not sure why, and new ones were planted, which is great. But right out my window, I can see 2 of the newly planted trees that did not make it. They are dead, and I don't know if anyone has noticed, and I don't know if they're going to be replaced. And I have a question also about what happened in Piazza della Vittoria, where the wonderful tall pini were cut down. This city is almost insopportabile in the summer with the extreme heat and how covered in concrete the city is, and the city actually feels the opposite of green, particularly in the summer with the extreme heat. Having more trees, and the trees like we had in Piazza della Vittoria that provide the shade, would make the city so much more comfortable in the summer. And I know there's a movement called Italia Nostra that, is talking about fermare subito, this cutting down of the trees. Do you have any comments?
So, did you get that, Dario? It's about trees, greening.
Yes. So I know there is a big debate about it, but in the last mandate, in the last 5 years, we planted 15,000 new trees, new plants, which is a big goal, never reached before. And we have another important goal for this new mandate, these new 5 years. We have the goal of planting 20,000 new trees. And for that reason, we started 6 years ago with an important project, also with the collaboration of University of Florence, about the control of status of health of plants, because as you know, in some situations you must change the plants. Unfortunately, in this last summer, we we didn't have the opportunity to invest to make other investments because the pandemic emergency, and we had we had big problems with local budgets. But now, thanks to the new law delivered by Italian government, Decreto Legge Agosto, we received 15 million euros, and now we can restart with our project about new plants and new trees. Then we want to create a new big park in the east zone of the city, where now we have an abandoned zone. The places Ugnano, Mantignano, and Poderaccio, And with this new park, we would like to give another opportunity to families to spend time in a public places with many trees. And lastly, we have another project already delivered with Professor Stefano Mancuso, who is one of the most important experts of urban biodiversity, in order to cover the walls, the walls of schools, of our schools, and our social housing buildings with plants. It's not only an environmental project, but it's also a new way to transform our suburbs in much more pleasant, much more pleasant place. So you can imagine all our Florentine schools completely covered by plants, which is also an important message to new generations, to our students. So how to live in a new refurbished place where plants and green have a crucial role.
Very good. Well, I think we must end it now because it's 4:30 and you've got to go to your other meeting, Dario. So I'd just like to thank you very much for your time and your participation, and I hope we can do it again before too long.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much. I hope to stay with you physically next meeting at British Institute. And thank you for your big contribute that you are giving to Florence as the oldest institute abroad outside the United Kingdom. So you are a part of our cultural heritage.
Thank you. I always say that the most important word is the British Institute of Florence.
Absolutely. Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.